You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
Happy Thursday, folks. Welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I'm your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and vice chair, Michael Liebowitz, who is echoing now in my ears because he turned something on that he shouldn't have. You boomer adjacent mofo, you. You're also the helm of this amazing channel that we have here, The Rational Alternative. Tell me about it a little bit while I light up the other side of the room, because it seems like I have a sort of...
Yeah, man, you look big. You have this very mysterious Hollywood look going on.
Should I keep the moody vibe, or should I make it a little bit more bright? I don't know. What do you guys?
I can't decide. Let the audience decide.
Right,
I got a great episode on The Rational Egoist right now with James Stevens Valiant. We discussed the virtue of pride. Excellent. I recommend checking it out as I wind down The Rational Egoist and transfer over full time to The Rational Alternative while maintaining this as our flagship program.
Very good, Michael. It's important that you're doing all this work, and you're promoting and growing this amazing channel that we have here. Which is there anywhere it's streaming live, or is there anything that else
It's on X and YouTube. I don't know how to do the Twitch thing. Where are you right now? What is happening with this new background?
Well, here's the deal. You know, I did a couple commercials for the channel early this morning, and I just had my ring light up, and I thought, you know what? It lights so much better. I don't have to light up the whole room in order to make this happen. But I got a whole different vibe, you know, when I came onto the show. It's like, bam! It's just it's a weird, moody vibe that didn't come across in my commercials.
You right now, I mean, this is like you're like that mysterious stranger look you got going on.
And I like the little off-center vibe. You notice how I always sort of go to one side of the screen or the other, because I hate that full center thing. That's what bad cinematographers they do center shots. You always want to be.
See what's happening right now is part of your hair is off the screen, so you need.
That's all right,
lower.
because no. You don't want all my hair on the screen.
No, we do.
You know, you want a little mystery, man. You want to know where that hair is going, and that plants a seed. It opens up, you know, thoughts in your mind, and you want to keep watching because you want to know where the hair is going. That's
hey, you want to answer a Hollywood question for me while we're on the air here?
Sure. I'm sort of an expert at that.
Yeah, a Facebook friend of mine told me to ask you. So let me find the question. So he says that Mark has a great respect and admiration for the talent of Philip Seymour Hoffman. Does he recognize a similar talent in Jesse Plemons? Is that how I pronounce that?
Yes. You know, it's funny. Jesse Plemons does remind me of Philip Seymour Hoffman. When I first saw him on Breaking Bad, he sort of had a minor part in Breaking Bad towards the very finale, but he was so arresting and so simple and so honest. And his physiology, his physicality reminded me of Philip. I thought this is Philip reincarnated. And, you know, you see him in Fargo, you see his talents evolve. And Michael, if you haven't seen Begonia, you have to see Begonia. It's a great, I guess, horror sci-fi thriller. Jesse Plemons plays a conspiracy theorist who kidnaps this CEO of this prominent sort of medical tech pharmaceutical company, convinced that she's an alien and that she's part of this Andromeda group of aliens who are trying to take over the world. You know, of course, it seems insane, but Jesse brings real believability and vulnerability to the part. He's awesome, and he lost a bunch of weight for it too. That's one thing I'm sort of against. You know, Robert De Niro with Raging Bull started the trend of method actors gaining and losing weight for parts. Some of them have done it at the risk of their own health. Matt Damon, I think, is on permanent medication because he played a heroin addict in it might have been Courage Under Fire. And so he lost a bunch of weight, undirected by a doctor, and permanently damaged his internal organs as a result. I don't think art is worth dying for.
No. But so the other question he wants to know if you're familiar with Tristan Spohn or Tristan Spahn, Spohn. He was on the show Stranger Things.
Yeah, but which one was he on Stranger
Oh,
Things?
I don't know. He just wanted to know if you were
Oh,
familiar with the
I think
guy.
that's the kid. I think that's the kid who is connected to the being in the upside down, and he had some really good moments. He's one
Well,
of the aside from Millie Brown, he's definitely one of the stronger actors of the
I
kids.
guess. Well, I guess he does YouTube content where he
Oh, okay.
differentiates between novice actors, award-winning actors, and in between. And the guy wanted to know if you were familiar with that stuff and what your thoughts were.
I'm not
But
familiar with that stuff, but I do think the strongest actor is the kid who played Dustin. Overall, the strongest actor in the entire show is that kid, and the guy who is his best friend, the kid from the ice cream store. I don't remember either of their names at the moment. I'm sure somebody from the chat can tell me, but those two were super strong actors. And look, they were so good, Michael, and the relationship spawned such love in the fandom that there was fear in the finale that both of them, one or the other of them, were going to die, and they made a song saying, "Please don't kill these guys." It was based on Mr. Sandman, Mr. Sandman.
I'm just so jealous right now. I'm not jealous. I'm envious of this background here. It's like I'm thinking, should I do something similar? But I don't
Really?
know if it would look kind of wacky to have that going all across. Yeah. I mean, it's bad enough you're the Hollywood actor, the good looking guy with the great hair. Now you come on with the great background. All right. So I figure, Mark, we'll go. Why don't we do some Iran news first? You could cover that because it's
Oh,
real
for the
boring.
love of God, really?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
so you have to say something about it, but it's just
But it seems that, Michael, the thing about the Iran thing that is so bugging, and that must give people massive Iran fatigue, is that it's the same thing over and over and over again.
right. That's what it's funny that you say that because I was thinking this morning, what the hell new can we say about this? Yet the Iranians are liars, the war's unconstitutional, Trump's a jackass. I mean, it's like rinse, repeat, say it again. Eh.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically Trump. Trump says we're in the middle of negotiations. We're seconds away from a deal. Actually, says the deal is done. Iran is desperate for a deal. We're making the
Yeah.
deal as we speak, and the Iranians come out. Galibaf, the main negotiator for Iran, who I think should be tried as a war criminal. To be honest with you, he's creepy in the same way that any Nazi official who was tried in Nuremberg was super creepy. That's him, and he comes out and he contradicts everything that the Trump administration says publicly. And of course, now they're angling for complete and total control of the Straits of Hormuz. They're angling to not denigrate their nuclear power anymore. All of the shit, Michael, is going to be recycled, but we knew this was going to happen from the moment you try to make a deal with a criminal cabal. You are compromising your own integrity, and you're asking for this kind of nonsense.
Yeah. So I'll go with that. I just want to throw a little something out there to you, Mark. I've made this kind of commitment. I don't want to keep fighting in the sort of the internecine battles. I want to branch out, but I got to tell you, there's some things this morning that tested my patience on that just a little. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to get into it. But I think may know what I'm talking about. I think Akira may know, but I'm not going to get into it. I just want to demonstrate I'm showing restraint.
Very good, I
So,
guess.
what do you mean, you guess?
Well, I'm not sure how important restraint is under the circumstances, right? But the restraint sort of takes the urgency off, and urgency was what Nikos alerted us to, right? The quality that we all need to have is urgency.
Yes, but why not point out the virtues of what we're advocating rather than the hypocrisy that might be out there amongst other people that are advocating the same thing or claim to be or whatever. You know what I mean?
Okay.
What do you mean? Okay, you
Yeah, I
sound
mean,
disappointed.
I mean, I like a good fight. What can I say?
Oh, you're something else.
But I'm not going
You're
to look. I'm not going to encourage that side of you, especially if you want to evolve out of it. You think there's a better way of doing business. You're probably right about that. I've certainly been told that, and I know the truth of that, Michael. When I have these internet wars with socialist
Yeah, I mean,
morons.
it's just aside from feeling good about it, I don't know what it really accomplishes.
Well,
Akira
you know what?
Felix
Yeah, but
says the hypocrisy just seems to be taking. Oh, by the way, super chats and super stickers are really very much appreciated. Akira Felix says the problem is that the hypocrisy just seems to be taking over the entire thing.
In which case, I think it's important to point it out and critique it. And maybe the restraint is in not getting crass, not going Trump mode. It's easier for us to do that now that Trump has opened the door to crassness and ad hominem. We don't have to go there. You can just simply point out the contradictions in their thinking and their lack of introspection and capacity to shift courses as a result of their lack of introspection. And that there's nothing unrestrained about that, man. To me, it's totally civil. And if somebody in the chat feels differently, please let me know. But it's the look. I mean, it's the punching somebody back. Well, you're not punching anybody. You're simply pointing something out. You're highlighting a hypocrisy that needs to be corrected. And frankly, Michael, noticing that hypocrisy is great for you. It's great for your mind, and pointing it out should be a lesson for them.
And then you say, and let that be a lesson to you.
Yes, you can conclude it with that.
All right. If I freeze, it's because I've entered my email.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
Don't sweat it.
So did you want to go there, or did you just throw that out there for us to discuss, and now you want to move on to something else?
You kind of insisted that I do.
Hey, man, don't let peer pressure get to you.
Well, why not?
I've never been moved by peer pressure. I don't want my friends to be moved by peer pressure.
So there's a big part of me that is a fighter. There's also a big part of me that hates injustice. And then there's also a part of me that likes to point shit out. Right?
No, I don't believe that.
Okay. So, all right. Whatever.
Hey, man, you got to pull the trigger, buddy, because right now
I'm going to do it, man. Chill out, bro. I had to.
But you gotta pass.
I could have swore I could have swore I just saved this and it didn't show up. Let me see. No, that's not it. It didn't work. I don't know. Hold on. I got to get the picture. Tell a story. You know what you could do too, Mark, is share I sent you the commercial that you made. I passed it on to X. You shared it to X?
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right.
I did all that, man. I'm way ahead of the curve right now. Let me just read some of the comments here. Kira, of course, you've already read. The problem is that hypocrisy just seems to be taking over the entire thing. Really, Akira? Like the Objectivist movement? You think that's so? Please point out more examples than the one we are stealthily referring to here without actually referring to it. Ian Gilmore says, one thing we could use is an alternate celebration of the 250th anniversary of the U.S. You guys are doing a good job in the run-up to the 4th, and the Bulwark has some good essays. That's good, yes. And with love for the principles of America being at an all-time low, I think we certainly need more of what we are giving. Ian Gilmore goes on to say, but there is very little prominent celebration of the ideas and what led us to the creedal nation. I agree with you there too. From the right, we're getting the blood and soil guys, and from the left, we are unfortunately getting a lot of hatred and disdain for America. And nothing really on the right from the blood and soil perspective is going to combat that hatred on the left. So that sucks. And Michael, Jeanette says, "Spit it out, bro." See, she's like me.
I'm trying to download this thing. It's just I don't know what's happening.
Maybe
why
you
it won't
shouldn't worry
work.
about the visual anymore. You just have to rely on the strength of your own testimony, man.
No, you can't do that. You got to get the picture. You need the video sometimes, or whatever. All right, you know what? Maybe if I do it this way.
The perils of
Let's
being
see.
boomer adjacent.
It sucks, man.
Oh, Persephone, where art thou?
Yeah.
I'm going to text Persephone today. I've been meaning to text her the last couple of days. Have you been keeping in contact with her?
A little bit.
Good. I need to see how she's doing because I miss her. Not just because of moments like this, Michael, where you can't sort out how to technically, do something on the show, but just in general.
I don't understand why it won't download. That's what I'm having a problem with.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Katie, for that. You're a member for 2 months. Love that.
All right. I think I can get this now. All right, let's see.
Oh, Steve Harrington. That's right. Steve Harrington, Dustin, and Joe Carey. So yeah, Gaten Matarazza is Dustin. He's extremely talented and has been from day one. Joe Carey is his friend Steve Harrington, who is also tremendous in that show. He should be a movie star. Go ahead.
All right, it won't do it. So anyways, let me just put it this way. Okay, so yesterday there was an episode of the Daily Objectivist. The Daily Objective. Is that what it's called? Razi's show, The Daily Objective?
Yep.
Okay, so the show was about the recent sort of Supreme Court decisions that came out. And so the thumbnail, it says, Trump gets a lesson in Americanism from the Supreme Court. And there's a picture of Trump, and he's got his executive order, sign, and he's scratching his head like he's very confused. And then there's a picture of John Roberts holding up the United States Constitution. And of course, Razi hearted that picture, the American Constitution. So 2 months ago, maybe, you released a statement for the American Capitalist Party and our stance on the war with Iran. And you said, although you would like to see the Iranian regime fall, the bottom line is that it's unconstitutional, so you can't support it. Razi responded to that openly on Instagram, I believe it was. Not personally, when he has your phone number and mine, but he responded out in the open and said unfollowed as a result of this. He subsequently said, in regard to our stance on the Constitution, that we are elevating the flawed ideas of men above reality. Mike Nyron is another guy who said that anybody who is an originalist with the Constitution or arguing against the Iran war based on the Constitution is a rationalist. So what happens? Razi has Mike Nyron on the Daily Objective to tout the virtues of the recent Supreme Court upholding the Constitution. So what this is, and this is not just a problem with them, this is a problem with the people who favor judicial activism, for instance, is it's not a principled approach to the Constitution. It is a case-by-case, concrete bound. I support this, therefore good. I oppose this, therefore bad. Right? And, being mocked publicly and being told how we're elevating other people's ideas above reality, let me take it a little further, being canceled from speaking at Razi's event, right? Resulting from this, I mean, he can say it's something else. I don't buy it. I don't believe it, right? Because nothing about me changed from the time when he asked me to speak until the time when he canceled me. And then you're going to turn around, and this is where the justice part comes in. Because at the time, I remember saying about these people, I will never again in my life let them get away with citing the Constitution or appealing to the Constitution, right? For Mike Nyron to go on that show, two guys who both mocked me for supporting the Constitution, and have Roberts holding up the Constitution and Trump scratching his head, and you want to make it seem like you're the defenders of this? You're not. I'm sorry, you're not. Now that I'm talking about it, like, I'm getting annoyed, because this is a thing of principle, where you and I stuck to principle and were mocked, berated, and canceled, quite frankly, because of it. And then they think they're just going to get away with turning around and coming out and promoting the Constitution now, as if it never occurred, as if they never said the things that they said. I mean, like, is that what this movement is about? Right? That, well, we can just say one thing on this day, then another thing on this day. No, I'm sorry. No. Thoughts?
I totally agree with you. Yeah, it's totally ironic, and the irony is lost on those guys, because, Michael, frankly, their advocacy for the state of Israel is more important in their view than preserving and protecting the idea of restrained government here in the United States through a constitution. I understand their advocacy for Israel. I'm a huge advocate for Israel. It's the only free state in the Middle East. They've got tons of problems, of course, inherent in the type of system that they have attempted to achieve there. But by and large, it's the best thing over there. It's the closest thing to a constitutionally restrained democracy that's in that region. And they don't have a constitution, of course, but they have a Declaration of Independence with principles, and they have a common law tradition there that doesn't exist in other parts of that world. So, of course, I'm going to support them, be a diehard supporter of them. But more than that, Michael, I'm going to advocate for the restraint of government so that people here are free. I am concerned. There's the picture. You got it up, baby.
I did. I figured it out. So this was the episode yesterday of the Daily Objective. And now Trump gets a lesson in Americanism from the Supreme Court. I mean, I look at this and I'm dumbfounded. I'm like, okay, if you want to say we're not, the Constitution's not important, it's flawed, whatever. Okay, but don't post shit like this. Come on, man.
And Michael, especially don't correctly label it as Americanism, because constitutionally restrained government is the essence of the practice of Americanism. It stems from what makes America unique in the world, and that's its commitment to individual rights and sacrosanct property and the restraint of government force. So the Constitution is seminal to that. But
this, like, it's so hard for me, Mark, to be honest with you, because it's like, I want to move forward, right? I do. I really do. But when someone has been unjust to me, when somebody's been unjust to my friend, and it's over this very issue, but now he wants to turn around and act like it never occurred, like he's just pro-Constitution.
Well, hey, maybe he'll have me on his show and I can discuss this very thing with him and put it out there. That's what I did last time when he brought his friend against me. He thought it would be a slam dunk debate. Remember when this whole problem started? It turned out not to be that way for them. They seem to be struggling to answer anything that I put out there. And they will always do that, Michael. And unfortunately, Razi's response to that is, I don't want to debate. Well, you should actually. That's how we come to truth.
No, you don't want to debate. You just want to malign people online.
And frankly, Michael, we know that, the way you come to truth, the way you come to understand concepts is through contrast, right? So having contrasting ideas like that is a way that you sharpen your mind with respect to its connection to reality and proper principles. He should be debating this for his own mental health.
Yeah.
Who was that? Thank you very much.
Kathy Cassio, thank you. She says, great material, guys. Love it. Thank you so much, Kathy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, dear.
Yeah. Rozzy told me that I should go to ARI University so I could properly learn objectivism. But one thing I know, and you don't have to be an expert in objectivism to know it, is the law of non-contradiction. And when you call somebody, saying somebody's elevating flawed ideas above reality for supporting the Constitution, and then you post the thumbnail of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court upholding the Constitution as a repudiation to the same president for damn near the same exact and principled behavior. Come on. All right. Speaking of principles, Mark.
Yes, sir. You want to get to that?
I do. So there was an article, I believe, in the AP, and it's called. Let me find it. It calls Trump the Great Equivocator, and it talks about how he will say one thing, then say another, often in the same speech. The war's won. We have to win the war. We got to get rid of their ballistic missiles. They should be able to have their ballistic missiles. And they kind of attribute it to just Trump just being self-serving or just wanting to, plausible deniability kind of thing because his defenders will just defend him no matter what. I attribute it to something a little bit deeper. I think it's just a complete lack of principles on the part of Donald Trump. Now, I've said this often, that people will often say things like, yeah, but the other politicians lack principles too, which is true. Other politicians lie as well, which is true. I think of Trump like a caricature of a politician, right? Like, what are those? That's what they are. They're caricaturists, right? Where you go and they draw a picture of you and everything's exaggerated.
Yeah.
Right. That's what Trump reminds me of. His lies are exaggerated from your normal politician. His authoritarianism is exaggerated, and his lack of principles is exaggerated. And when we're going to get into in a few minutes, the principles upon which this country was founded. But before we do that, I thought we could have a mini discussion on the importance of principles.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's have that discussion. What's interesting, Michael, is that even guys like Victor Davis Hanson will look at Trump and they acknowledge his boorishness, his crudity, how he's lowered the discourse in politics. But at the same time, they will claim that it is a strategy. They'll understand it's a character flaw, but it's nestled within a strategy. And so their perspective about this, throwing out contradictory ideas simultaneously, isn't even so much that he's going to have plausible deniability, but the purpose of it is to keep the person he's negotiating with or the parties negotiating with on their heels so that they never quite know what is coming down the pike. I have an even deeper sensibility for this, Michael. I agree with you that I don't think he really has principles. I also think his epistemology is incredibly confused and that we are watching somebody in the midst of a mental decline. And so that he is confused. He's just simply confused. So that's my take on it. I think only time will be able to bear that out. But go ahead. Let's talk about principles and the way in which they help us navigate reality.
I'm actually going to share. There's a great essay here that I'm going to share from Dr. Leonard Peikoff. I'm going to post it to X and I'm going to post it to Facebook because it's phenomenal and it has to do with the importance of principle. Let me see here. Let me just get it posted. Principles ultimately allow us to take a large complexity, a large abundance of information and condense it so that we can deal with a lot. So that, for instance, I understand that nationalizing an industry is not a good thing, right? I understand that it's a violation of property rights. I understand that it's theft. I understand what property rights are. I understand that individuals have property. I understand it represents a use of force. I understand it's economically inefficient. I know that it undermines our system. So there's a whole bunch of concretes that come into my understanding if you say, we're going to nationalize the microphone industry, right? But then if you come to say, well, what if we were to nationalize just the ring light industry? No, same principle. And you say, well, what about the cup industry, right? I understand in principle why it's wrong, why it doesn't work. I don't have to go along to each thing. Similar thing with lying, right? Trying to gain values by deceit. I understand the consequence. I understand what's involved. I understand it represents a making up of reality, puts me in contrast to reality, counts on the gullibility and the lack of acumen on the part of the person that I'm talking about, that I'm talking to, that these are not the type of people that I want to deal with, that it's going to come back and bite me in the ass. And I know all this based on an abundance of knowledge, but I condense it right into the principle of honesty. The opposite approach is the pragmatic approach, where every new situation is completely new. Everything needs to be assessed as if I've never dealt with anything about it. Should I lie to this guy? Should I rob this guy? Should we nationalize this industry? And Trump, I think, operates over one overarching principle that he does operate by. I don't think it's conceptualized, and I think it is, I feel this is good for me. And when he feels it's good for him, he's going to do it, he's going to say it. And I don't really think it goes any deeper than that, and I think that we are all right now dealing with the consequences of that, despite how many people pretend that he's playing 4D chess and he's just, taking over the world and making it in his image and everything's going to work out and we're going to sing Kumbaya.
Yeah, I agree, Michael. Why is he desperate for a deal in Iran? Not because it's the right thing to do, not because a vast majority of the population in America wants it, but because he wants gas prices down for the midterms. That's why he's even agitating to control gas prices and to send the Department of Justice against the individual distributors of gasoline to try to force the price down to an arbitrary level. Michael, he said, I think it should be $2.50. I don't know if that came to him while he was sitting on the pot or what, but he just pulled that number out of his ass the way Roosevelt used to pull gold values out of his ass every morning. And he just said that because you know what? It sounds super good and it'll win him the midterms. So that's all he cares about right now, Michael, is the midterms. He has to win that. Otherwise, he loses his agenda. He's going to get mired in, I think, an attempt by the House Democrats to impeach him. They're going to call all of the president's men before them. And he is trying to shore up the holes before that happens.
Excellent. So I have two quotes here. I think they're from Ayn Rand. This one's from Capitalism, the Unknown. One's from the Ayn Rand letter. They're both from the Ayn Rand letter. So I'm going to assume they're Ayn Rand. If they're not, I apologize. One of them is, when men abandon principles, two of the major results are individually, the inability to project the future, socially, the impossibility of communication. And another great one, only fundamental principles, rationally validated, clearly understood, and voluntarily accepted, can create a desirable kind of unity among men. I could not agree more.
And Michael, this is precisely what's happening. The Trump administration can't project the future. And their capacity to communicate to people is sending shockwaves of chaos everywhere. So clearly, this is an exact, accurate commentary on what's going on in the administration. I took it a little further with a little psychology because I think he is in the midst of some kind of mental decline, but that's just me. In any respect, Michael, we're helmed by a man without a brain. And I say without a brain because he's not taking the sum of knowledge that you have in principles and using those as guides. It's just his feelings and impulses. It might as well be a fucking reptilian creature leading us, Michael, because that's the level on which he's acting. He's not acting on the human level.
Yeah, you've just said basically that the scarecrow is our president.
Right? It's true. It's true, Michael. You said, when you said his primary, if there's a principle governing Trump's behavior, it's if he feels it's right for him. It's not even if he thinks it's right for him. If he feels it's right for him, then he does that. So it's just a different level of behavior. It's a level down from the rational level of typical human behavior, what we would expect from a human being. It's animal, it's perceptual level stuff that this guy is using to guide his behavior and our country. And the chief executive should not be this kind of man. The chief executive has to be savvy, smart, and in command of principles, Michael. He has to be able to delegate responsibilities out to people, but the principles, his governing principles, are what has to guide him in whom he delegates responsibilities to. Trump cannot do that. All he does is he populates his administration with people who say yes to him. That's dangerous too. He populates it with people he's not intimidated by, people who will not say no to him. That's dangerous. A good executive, like Lincoln, for example, populated his cabinet with enemies, not just to keep them close, I think, but to get their opposition, to get the contrast of their thinking, because they were significant men. Chase was significant. Seward was a significant human being. He was a very serious thinker. To have these men in your cabinet was vital. And it would have been vital for a guy like Trump, but he's not a statesman. He's a malignant narcissist.
True that, bro.
Yeah, I feel like, Michael, if I go off like that, people are going to get the impression that I'm taking personal shots at Trump when, I am personally affronted by somebody who doesn't even pretend to be rational, and that does bother me on a deep personal level. But this is really ethical, and this is philosophical. This is not just differences of governance or of the fact that I don't agree with certain things that he does. I feel his epistemology is so twisted that it's a metaphysical danger to all of us. And so I have to say it out loud.
It is. The longer I think about it, I think, Mark, see, you did something now that I don't like. You leaned back and you've altered your background now, so now you can see the other stuff. We don't want that.
Oh, see, I have to keep that. See, now it just looks blue and green. Yeah, I guess.
I want you. I need a picture of that. So before we go off the air today, or once, before you and I disperse after the show, I need that, because I'm going to take a picture of your background. I'm going to make it my own, I think. And then both of us will have that, and we'll look super, super sick. So anyways, yes, individuals need principles, and societies, governments need them too. And as we come upon the 250th anniversary of what I'm about to read, I think it's important to recognize our true north, what this country was founded upon, and try, I don't want to just say get back to it, but maybe to put it this way, to get back to it and make it consistent, iron out the contradictions. And I don't mean we're not going to do it. Ayn Rand has already done it, but you get my point. But anyways, so I just want to read a few things here. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Mark, I've done so much reading in my life. on the history of natural rights, the history of natural law, the Constitution, the Declaration. And just this morning, I found out. Now, it's possible I came across this before and just don't remember it. But I guess this was standard legal practice at the time, was if you were going to separate from a country like this, you put out a declaration and you gave the reasons. You let them know. It actually had been done before. I think they said by the Dutch, if I'm not mistaken. So that was very interesting to me, that these guys knew what they were doing, right? This wasn't just some haphazard, off the cuff thing. They followed what they knew was the accepted protocol.
Exactly. Michael, this is what makes this revolution so extraordinary. Revolutions in the past have been spontaneous uprisings, more or less. They've been predominantly dictated by violence, by one group of oppressed rising up against the oppressors, but not really not really animated by a moral philosophy, other than to stop their suffering, which is good, but it's certainly not enough. But the American principles, America was guided by a sort of conservatism at first, Michael, and their desire to preserve the rights of Englishmen led them to a 10 years long discussion and debate about exactly what that meant and what good governance was, which led them to evolve concepts to what we know them to be today, which is the concept of individual right, which isn't just that Englishmen had rights that had to be respected by government and protected by government, but that human beings had rights that had to be recognized and respected by government. So the revolution became one that on the surface was a people seeking independence from a colonial power, but was really about the liberation of the human being from the state in general, and a realignment of concepts, so that the state was meant to protect the individual, to keep him free, not to restrain him.
Yes. So we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. I read that whole thing because I want to get into all of it. So the first thing that they knew, Jefferson knew, that they were not bringing new ideas to the forefront. These ideas were known. Jefferson studied an abundance of philosophers, both of which he agreed and disagreed. Going back to Cicero in regard to natural law, there were other Italian philosophers whose names I don't remember, but also Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the Baron de Montesquieu. These guys were enmeshed in political theory and political thought. Jefferson had previously written the Summer Review of the Rights of British America, which was supposed to be instructions to the First Continental Congress, but they didn't follow his instructions, the Virginia delegation. But it still leaked. It still got out there. He was talking about rights. Now, at the time, he still wanted to maintain reconciled to England. He did not want to separate. Subsequently, there was George Mason and the Virginia Declaration of Rights, which contained a lot of the language, the life, liberty, and property was in that. And Jefferson took all that at a time when the country was ripe for it and put this out there, and they gave the declaration, sent it to England, they released it to the population, and only like 50% of the public endorsed this. 15 or 20% were adamantly against it. But what I think it's great what they were talking about. They were talking about ideas that we're going to find this country on life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Deep philosophical ideas going back to Cicero, John Locke. But the prudence part is vital. Why? Because when you juxtapose the American Revolution with the French Revolution. Now, Jefferson should have known better. But some of the founders, including Jefferson, supported the French Revolution. But men like Edmund Burke understood that it was not the same. The American Revolution was about securing and claiming rights they understood that they already have. It wasn't a complete break with the past where you just get rid of everything. Whereas the French Revolution, not inspired by Locke, but inspired by Rousseau, they wanted to get rid of the clergy. They're going to get rid of the monarchy. They're going to get rid of the system of years, that they're keeping. And it ends up in a total bloodbath. That's why our revolution was so superior.
Yeah, Michael, I feel like the French Revolution was really a revolution of fascism. They tried to remake human nature in the way that Marx thought that human nature had to be remade. The founders weren't trying to remake human nature. They discovered what human nature was, and they discovered the principles upon which human nature could flourish, and developed a system that promoted human nature. It didn't see human nature as something vile or evil or corrupted, as like a Rousseau would, or civilization as a corrupting influence, as a Rousseau would.
I'm glad you clarified. Thank you for that.
Yes. Rousseau saw civilization as a corrupting influence on people. It was, whereas our founders thought that civilization was a result of the triumph of reason and the triumph of rational principles in the world. And of course, in my view, they were right, and I think the results bear out that they were right, in that you have a republic that has lasted, despite tons of obstacles, conflicts, and paradoxes within its culture, for 250 years. Whereas the French Revolution devolved, Michael, in a few years into a continental war and another dictatorship. So, and then back into, and it never quite adjusted itself, Michael. I don't think it ever came out of that tailspin, and I don't think it understands why it never came out of that tailspin. Whenever I go to Europe, I'm always sort of flabbergasted at the fact that they simply don't understand the concept of right. Worse than our college-educated Americans, who don't seem to understand it as well, but they really don't. They've never gotten it, Michael.
Earlier, Mark, we talked about principles, and I think it's important to note they talked about rights. Now, they called them self-evident, which they're not. They're an extension of ethics, the bridge between ethics and politics. But rights are principles. They're principles that human life requires in order to flourish. So when they talk about the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, they're talking about your right to action, your right to act, to pursue your life, your right to pursue your own happiness, your right to freedom, freedom to think, freedom to act. These are principles. They don't need to be checked every new time. Wait a second, should this person have the right to life, though, in this instance? Should they be free in this instance? Can they really pursue their happiness now when we don't like what's going on the internet? No, these are the principles that are the requirements, the preconditions for human flourishing. And as inconsistent as they were with their philosophy. I mean, we all know about the slave stuff. It still set the stage for unprecedented human flourishing. Imagine if they would have been consistent. Imagine if we could be consistent with these ideas today. Jerry Zaz, yeah, Lincoln. He was a great orator, right? Yes,
He was.
he
Seems like
was,
a
and I thank you for the
non-sequitur.
$2.
I'm not sure where that's going, to be honest with you. He was a great writer and a great orator, and he one of his virtues was that he held up the Declaration.
Oh, he might be watching on a delay because you mentioned
Okay.
Lincoln earlier, and he might just be referring to that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So because I mentioned that he brought in a cabinet of rivals. Yeah. Well, that's true. He was politically very astute, and he was an extremely good writer and a very powerful thinker. And one of the virtues that he has, and there are many things that I think he did wrong, extending presidential power the way in which he did. But some of this could be understood within the context of history, in that Washington, D.C. was in the middle of secession territory, and that he was literally, there were armed pickets from the Confederacy on one side of the Potomac that tried to take him out multiple times. So some of his missteps as the chief executive, I understand. But Michael, one of the things that he did was he would raise up the Declaration of Independence as the spiritual document of the United States of America, and as the primary reason justifying the moral weight behind ending slavery. So, I mean, I thought he was pretty powerful in that respect. As flawed a presidency as he had, there were many great things about him.
I'm going to change the subject. I think. Look, no, I'm not, because I want to mention one more thing. The Declaration was just that. It was a declaration, but it required a long, hard-fought, bloody war in order to really achieve it. And one man more than any other, I think, was responsible for that achievement, and that's George Washington. So tomorrow, as we end this series heading into the 4th, we are going to have a discussion about His Excellency George Washington. So I want to tell you a little bit. I want to pivot a little bit to a funny story for you, Mark. I think you'll get a kick out of this. So on the Rational Egoist, Andy Bernstein and I, we do a thing where we review movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the movies I've liked, some So we're talking about what movie to do next. And he tells me he just recently saw this Spielberg movie that just came out. I don't remember the name of it.
The Deception, no.
Something, yeah, I don't remember.
Discovery, yeah. It's about
so
aliens.
He's like, yeah, he's about aliens, yeah. So he says, yeah, you know, why don't you guys, you can watch this and we'll do that. And he's talking about it, telling me he loves Spielberg. You know, Spielberg's a good storyteller. And I said, all right. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have to go, I don't know how much movies are, but I'm guessing they're pretty expensive to get into now. So I'm going to go to the movies with Diana. I'm thinking spend probably $40 to go see this, maybe more. What the hell do I know? And I'm like, yeah, so that's what we'll do. And he's like, yeah, disclosure day, yeah. And he says, yeah, I really didn't like the movie. And I said, so wait a minute. You're telling me this movie sucks, but I ought to go see it? Really? What the hell is that?
That's Bernstein saying that.
Yeah. Yeah. I said, no. I'm not going to go pay money to watch this movie that sucks when I can watch a movie on my TV that I'm going to enjoy, that we can review. So we ended up settling on True Grit, the John Wayne version of True Grit.
Okay.
And I watched it last night. I've seen it before, but I love the movie True Grit. But I'll tell you what, have you ever seen it?
Of course, but you also have to see the
Okay.
Coen brothers version.
I have.
Did you like it?
Yeah, but that's
Not as
not what
much.
we're reviewing. Well, it's
Not
just
as much.
different. No, it was more modern, and Jeff Bridges is brilliant. I thought he did great at playing Rooster Cogburn.
He's great.
Yeah, so I just realized that I've seen the movie before. I saw the Coens. I must be touched upstairs or slow or something, because I just realized last night that True Grit does not refer to Rooster Cogburn.
Of course it doesn't.
No, True Grit refers to Maddie Ross. She's
Yes.
the one with the True Grit.
Yes.
And I just realized it last night. And I was so happy. I was like, oh my God. No, not when we're watching it. I said, oh my God, this refers to her.
Yes.
She's the one with the grit. What a great character she was. I can't wait to review this movie with Bernstein.
She's great. Now, I don't remember the original actress who played her, but because I thought the one in the Jeff Bridges Coen brothers version was tremendous. She was so good that thematic element was almost self-evident.
You're talking about Haley Steinfeld.
That's the one who plays it in the original,
No,
or
in the new one.
Yeah, she's amazing. She was amazing. Yeah, and I think it inspired me to see a couple of her other films because she was so genius in that part. Great film though, man. I wish we had more. I wish we had more movies like that.
Have you seen Rooster Cogburn?
Have I seen? It's been ages since I've seen that movie, or that stuff. Like, it's been ages, so I'd have to watch it again.
Well, it was a good movie. The Coen brothers. I believe that their book, the movie The Apprentice. I've never even heard of it. Okay, so the from what I understand, I thought that the Coen brothers version when it first came out was a remake of the original, but I guess it's not. It actually is directly from the book, True Grit. But it was a good movie. I liked them both. So I don't remember. I guess the question is, would you change the law so that an American citizen who would make an excellent, inspiring president could be elected, even if they weren't born in the USA? The question is asked in response, is the presidency the only political office that requires a candidate to be a natural-born citizen? Well, vice president as well.
Yeah. Right. Would you change that, Michael, to naturalized citizen as opposed to just because you think about all the native-born Americans who have occupied the office of presidency and had complete contempt for the Constitution and for Americanism. I mean, they're legion. So, I mean, one of the reasons they made it that way is they thought that, ties of blood and soil and common culture would mean that the person who occupied that office would not bring, say, foreign attitudes or foreign philosophies that were hostile to Americanism into the office. That was not the case, though. That has not been the case.
So Greg Doherty says inspirational leaders, yes. And he says most Americans are decent but confused, mixed in philosophy. They will not support true capitalism. The artists depict the most important topic. I don't know if I guess not answering the question. I don't know. I'm a little confused, Greg, because I don't remember Mark's question from yesterday. Thank you. So that to me, it's not something that I'm very interested in, to be honest, Mark. I don't really care. Whether they're naturalized. Okay. Ian Gilmore says they should. I just think there's far more important issues to focus on than whether the president has to be natural born citizen or not. Ian Gilmore says Miller's Crossing is the best Coen Brothers movie. I love Miller's Crossing. I haven't seen it in like 30 or over 30 years. Love Miller's Crossing. The hi-hat. I hate the hi-hat.
It's a good movie. It's a good
Bernie
movie.
Birnbaum, the Schmata Kid. Great movie. John Turturro.
For somebody who hasn't seen it in 30 years, you remember pretty much everything about it.
I've seen it a lot of times.
Okay.
It's from there that I learned to shave with cold water.
Okay. I don't remember.
Because the guy says when you shave with hot water, what does heat do to metal? It expands it.
Oh, yeah.
But if you want a nice tight shave, you shave with cold water.
Makes sense. But it's a great movie, but I take issue with that, man. I still think maybe The Big Lebowski's up there.
Oh, come on. You're so biased, dude.
I'm not. When I read the script, Big Lebowski, this came after Fargo, which I thought was their best movie up until that point. And I thought, well, this is pretty good, but it's no Fargo. And then I saw what they did with the script, and it was just unbelievable.
My favorite character, sorry, Mark, in that movie by far is John Goodman's character.
Yeah,
I love
not
that guy
mine, not mine.
with his Arab Shabbos. He's got to celebrate the Arab Shabbos.
It wasn't mine. I mean, because when I read the script, I saw it completely differently than the way he did it, but it was good. My favorite, and we talked about it at the very beginning of the show, Philip Seymour Hoffman's part. I thought he was so funny. He was so funny. And watch it again, man. You may find what Philip does to be a lot more subtle and interesting upon a second viewing.
Everything except for the two weirdos at the beginning that go hunting.
Everything works. Everything works.
Those guys, though. I mean, yeah, they should have just not had those guys.
Sometimes people confuse me. No, you know what? We kicked the film off in proper fashion. I think.
No, you were great. That was a great opening. That's a great movie.
And I was a stoner. I was like a surfer stoner in that. And when I did that audition, it was funny because I did the audition. I came back for a callback with Joel and Ethan sitting there on the couch. And Joel sort of has that real slow quality like this, almost like a Philip Kaufman. You don't know Philip Kaufman. He's a director, but he sort of talks like this. And when I walk in, he goes, I just want you to know you're one of the best blonde men we've seen. Because that was my character was the blonde man, not the Jackie Treehorn thug, but the blonde man. And it was such a fun audition to do,
do you have a name in the movie?
Blonde Man, the blonde man.
It's just blonde man. There's no name.
No name. Just like the anarchists are all anarchists. Flea is one of the anarchists. Flea,
the guitarist,
the bassist for Red Hot Chili Peppers. He's like one of the greatest bassists in rock and roll.
I don't know him personally.
He's one of the anarchists.
What anarchists in the movie?
Yeah. The
I
anarchists.
don't even remember it.
We believe in nothing. Yeah, those guys.
Oh, I got to see it. All right. Capitalist thought of the day. Then Mark's going to ask the question. Oh, wait. No. Did I do the capitalist thought of the day yesterday? I think I did.
No. Yes, you did. You had to.
Yeah.
You had to.
I did. Yeah. It's your turn.
It is?
Yeah.
All right, folks. We're celebrating the 250th year of the birth of our republic. And what was born during that time? Well, capitalism, a system of political and economic freedom, which means you are free from the coercion of other people in every aspect of your life. That's what capitalism does. It bans the initiation of force from interpersonal relationships so that you are free. We understand that the only way your rights can be violated is by other people, not by the exigencies of life, not by the laws of nature, but by other people. And so we make a system of laws whereby you are free in every respect except in initiating force against others. And you know what? Frankly, that promotes a society of reason, rational action. It allows the rational actors to be free. The trader principle enables them to trade values with us that makes us better. And the fact that nobody is making a living off of anybody else or parasitizing anybody else lends itself to a benevolent and kind society that is prone to charity. So let's get to that system already. The closest we get to it, the better off we are. We see it. The further away we get from it, the worse off we are. So let's get to it, man. Let's embrace it. Let's not just touch it. Let's not just get close. Let's take it and become it.
Yes. Okay. The question is going to be, and please, for those of you who joined us from X, I'm just getting a text from Andy Bernstein. Wow. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay, so no, it's no, but he's just a boomer and having boomer problems with links. So now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, if you're joining us from X, this is the Rational Alternative YouTube channel. The show is The Capitalist Corner. It's our flagship show, but we got a lot of other content on the channel. Please go and subscribe. We would love to have you and become a member. Okay. The question is this: are there any movies where the remake is better than the original? Please go to YouTube and answer this question. Any movies where the remake is better than the original? Mark, take us out.
Yeah, before I take us out, I want to remind everybody that the American Capitalist Party National Convention will be on September 19th through the 20th. It'll be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Please go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org and reserve your place now. Be a part of history. Yeah, I'm making a rather grandiose statement here, but I think we are in a very unique time right now where we are poised to go one way or the other. We're either going to go full collectivist or we are going to go back to an individual rights respecting society that embraces capitalism. And so let's start moving in the proper direction. And one way to do that is to become a part of the policies, help us vote on those policies so that we could bring these policies to legislatures and start moving governments around the country in the direction that we need to go. All right, guys, you got 23 hours to check your premises. Is what active-minded people do. All right, check your premises. Peace.